Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with Hard West 2. I thought some of you might benefit from a breakdown of the different party members you get access to. So let's go ahead and get started. And I want to begin with the things that are the same for all of your party members. They're all going to have this ally meter, except for Jin, who is essentially considered the leader and the main character. All the rest of them, you'll be able to slowly earn loyalty points with them throughout the game. And how high your loyalty meter is will determine whether or not you have access to the first two traits for all of your party members. So the first trait requires the party member to at least be an ally, whereas the second trait requires you to have developed a friendship with them. So as you can see, I have not unlocked this trait for Lazarus. Also note that all of the party members, from my memory at least, are automatically unlocked during the main mission. There are a couple of them you can refuse to have join you, so it's still up to you, but you don't have to worry about missing them or doing side quests in order to be able to unlock them. You'll run into all of them over the course of the game. And then the last thing that is consistent for all of them is how high their skills have been unlocked or how many traits have been unlocked is determined by your cards ranking. So you'll see I don't have Armor of Faith because he does not have a Royal Flush hand that has been assigned to him. So this is consistent for all of the different party members. All right. So now let's get into what's unique for each one of them. And I want to start with the two party members that I didn't really use much in the game. And we'll go with Lazarus first. So Lazarus is really interesting. He has the power of transfusion. He can swap his HP and statuses with any other posse member in sight. But as you level it up, first by getting a straight and then by getting a four of a kind, he can actually get to the point that he can swap his HP and statuses with any other character in sight as long as they are human, but it doesn't matter if they are living or undead. This essentially makes him kind of a tank where you can throw him out there, let him get hit up, and then he could just transfer his status to another character and be healed right up to full health, while at the same time potentially doing massive damage to another enemy character. So it gives you a kind of versatility that the other characters don't really have. He also gets a couple of traits that also help with that tank status. So he's going to get Fiery Sermon. Whenever Lazarus kills someone, he gains the Patching Up status, which is going to give him more health. Later on down the line, he's also going to get Armor of Faith. So if at the start of his turn, his HP is lower than 75%, he automatically goes heads down and stops burning. Very, very nice. And he is also going to get Reverse Tell. If he has 100 luck points, he heals entirely, but he loses his 100 luck points. So as you can see, there are multiple things that he gets access to that really help to ensure he's going to be fully healed and able to take care of himself. I don't particularly care for Lazarus, one, because I don't really like his transfusion. I feel like the powers that other people get, it really helps them against multiple people. Whereas obviously with Lazarus, he's only going to be able to target one person and transfer those statuses. So it can be useful against bosses, but it's just not really my cup of tea. And then also, I don't like purification. So instead of having heads down, which all the other characters use in order to decrease the percentage chance that an enemy is going to be able to hit them, he gets purification. Now, purification allows him to remove all negative statuses, which of course can be very useful if you're burning or bleeding or things of that nature. But the fact of the matter is, in order to be able to put those negative statuses on you, enemies have to hit you first. And so I personally prefer to put my party members in positions on the map where they become very, very difficult to hit. And the chances of those negative statuses being placed on them is decreased significantly. So I personally don't like not having access to heads down. And frankly, I don't like the whole setup of it's almost like with Lazarus, you're kind of living on the edge because you want enemies to lower his health so that you can transfer it to other enemies. But you never know when all of a sudden more enemies are going to come out of nowhere and he's going to get lit up and all of a sudden be on the ground. And once he's on the ground, there is no way to pick him back up. So I just don't like living dangerously in that kind of way. And so, me personally, I didn't use Lazarus, but he's absolutely a fantastic character, and you can get a lot of usage out of him if this is a play style that you prefer. The other party member that I didn't use as often was Flynn. Now, Flynn's main power is Shadow Swap, which is going to allow her to switch places with anyone who she has a line of sight with, whether they be a party member or an enemy. And so this can be really, really useful to reach those high up or hard to reach enemies so that you can place them in an area where it's significantly easier for your party members to deal with them. In addition to that, she has a couple of nice traits. She's definitely fit for shotgun. So she has Shotgunner, which is going to give her a +1 damage when using shotguns. And she has Brawler, which is going to give her a +5% bullseye chance when shooting from shotguns. She also has Rifleman, which is going to add a +1 damage when she's using rifles as well. She's also got a few things that assist when it comes to gaining luck. So Pocket Full of Chips ensures if Flynn's luck is 0, she's going to gain 25 luck automatically. And remember, luck is used to increase your chance to hit those hard to reach enemies. And then she also has Stroke of Luck. If she has at least 100 luck points, she gets a +10% bullseye chance. And then way at the bottom here, if you give her 5 of a kind, which is only possible if you're able to unlock hidden Joker cards, she is able to gain double luck from missing shots or being shot at, all of which is very, very nice. I don't particularly care to use it for a couple of reasons. One, as I've already stated, I prefer to use powers that affect multiple enemies. And of course, she's only affecting one enemy at a time with this shadow swap. Even though you can get it to the point that it has no cooldown, I found it difficult to try to chain 2 or 3 shadow swaps together because oftentimes, if there's an enemy that's hidden in a spot where you really don't want them to be, you don't want to then shadow swap again and place another enemy in that spot. So, for me personally, I didn't find it all that useful to do it again and again in a single turn. And then also, I feel like her best weapon related trait is Brawler, and that's specifically for shotguns. But I don't think shotguns are really all that useful for Flynn because shotguns use a cone when they attack in this game, and you can't point the cone downwards or upwards. You have to be on the same plane that you are attempting to shoot. And a lot of times, again, with Flynn, when I'm using that shadow swap, I'm going into those high, hard to reach areas to try to pull enemies down so it's easier to deal with them. Consequently, being up in those areas, shotguns just really aren't all that useful, and I'm depending on rifles. So for me, just all of that together makes her a character I wasn't particularly interested in using, but I think you can absolutely see based upon her power and her traits, she does serve a purpose and she might definitely fit into your team. All right, now let's get into the characters I did use throughout my playthrough, starting with Cla'Lish, who has the Deceptive Spirit power. So at level 1, she can summon a Deceptive Spirit that distracts enemies for 1 round. Over time, you can get it to the point that it'll last for 2 rounds. It will move and attack, and it can cripple the opponents that it attacks. This thing is absolutely fantastic. Not only does it attract the attention of regular enemies, but it'll attract the attention of enemies with very, very powerful effects, such as the ones that throw explosives at you. It'll do it towards the spirit instead of in the middle of your team. Great, great stuff. And this thing actually has a decent amount of health, so it can take several lickings from the enemies and still stay up on his feet. Absolutely great stuff. The only issue I would say with it is when it says attack, the spirit can only attack in melee. So it has to be able to get close enough to the enemy in order to be able to do an attack. But otherwise, as long as it's got plenty of enemies around it, it will do great damage and be a great distraction for you, raising up the survivability of all of your team. Cla'Lish is definitely a rifle specialist, so she has Rifleman, which gives her a +1 damage when using rifles. She's also got Eagle Eye, which is going to reveal the fog of war at a higher range than other people on your team. She's got Killer Instinct, which means whenever she has Bravado, she adds 10% to her bullseye chance. And she has Sharpshooter. She's going to gain a +5% bullseye chance when shooting from rifles. And remember, rifles do significantly more damage than other weapons in the game. So she can sometimes flat out one shot bosses if she's getting that bullseye chance high enough and you add in a couple of these other factors. Great stuff. She's absolutely a fantastic character for you to be able to use. And actually, I forgot one more really nice trait is holding breath. If at the start of her turn, Cla'Lish has at least half cover, she adds 1 to her bullseye damage multiplier. So all of this together, great stuff. I really enjoy having her. She's going to build up the survivability of your team. With that rifle, she's going to use all of her AP to damage enemies and either flat out take them out or soften them up so that other characters can get the bravado and use that to take out even more enemies. She just fits right in with everything that I want to do. Oh, I also feel like it's worth noting before we move on to the next party member that for her trinket, I gave her the targeting ocular, which is going to multiply damage when a character scores a bullseye, and it's specific for rifles. So this is going to allow her to do even more damage when she's able to get into that bullseye mode. Next up is Jin. So Jin's power is Shadow Barrage, and this power allows him to shoot a hail of bullets at enemies that actually goes through walls and cover. So tactically, it can be very useful to use this against a bunch of enemies who think that they're entrenched. As your levels in this get higher, not only will the damage increase, but it'll also have a higher effective range, and you'll be able to add the burning effect so that enemies lose 3 HP every turn that they're on fire. In addition to this, he's absolutely geared to use pistols. So he has the loaded guns trait, which is going to give him a +1 weapon damage. He's going to gain 25 luck every single time he kills someone. Pistolero is going to give him a +1 damage when using pistols. Gunslinger is going to give him a 5% bullseye chance when shooting from handguns. And Dancing with Bullets means that when he kills someone while not being in cover, he is going to gain the duelist status. All of this makes him extremely useful as long as you have him equipped properly. Another cool thing about him is because he's using pistols, not only are some pistols 2 AP, but you can also later on get pistols that are 1 AP, meaning that he can use all 3 of his AP in order to be able to shoot 2 different weapons and have more opportunity to be able to kill enemies. Now, this hand cannon is, if I remember correctly, the most powerful weapon in the game, but if you notice at the bottom, it does daze you if you use it because it's so powerful. So I gave him a trinket that actually makes him resistant to the daze status, and that ensures that he's able to fire this off as often as he likes. And then he's also going to have the Derringer cannon, which is going to do only 2 damage to enemies, but again, it only costs 1 AP. However, it does have a 1-turn cooldown. So even though Bravado is going to give you 3 AP over and over again, you can't do this 3 AP process over and over again to infinity. But if you allow other party members to soften your enemies up, because remember, he's getting that +1 to weapon damage and another +1 for using handguns. So in practice, this is, I believe, 4 damage that he does to enemies, not 2. So if your party members kind of soften some of these enemies up, you can definitely create a situation where you're going to get bravado twice back to back from using the hand cannon and from using the derringer, and then you're going to be able to switch right back to the hand cannon and do even more damage. Great combination, great stuff. Really, really enjoy using Jin. Okay, the next character up is Old Man Bill. Really, really like him. I use him kind of as an off tank in a similar fashion to what we talked about with Lazarus, except when his health gets lower, it's going to have negative effects for all the enemies on the field, not just one at a time. So his power is Dead Man's Revenge. Bill deals damage to every enemy in his line of sight. The damage increases by 1 for every 4 HP that Bill has lost. And as this power gets higher, it's going to do more damage and it's going to have a longer range. This can be absolutely brutal to be able to use this power and deal 7 or 8 damage to all the enemies essentially that are on the field. He does a great job of setting them up so that then either himself or Jen or whoever can come in and get bravado against 4 or 5 enemies in a row, activating some fantastic statuses and making it much easier to wipe out all the enemies on the field. He has also got a lot of resistances that help him to be more tanky. So Bullheaded gives him resistance to Dazed or Drunk, which means he can do the same thing as Jin does as far as using a hand cannon, but not worrying about being dazed, but he doesn't need a trinket to pull this off. So he can just go crazy with it. Bloodless means that he's resistant to bleeding, and Fireproof means that he's resistant to burning. So all of this is going to help to keep him on his feet. He has Pistolero, which is going to give him +1 damage while using handguns. And High Noon means at the start of his turn, if Bill has no cover, he gains the Duelist status. Duelist means that the first attack that is done against him will automatically be returned by an attack by him as well. And then Come At Me, Bub means that he can counter shoot an infinite amount of attacks as opposed to just the first one that is done against him. Great stuff. If he has at least 100 luck points, he gains a +1 bullseye damage multiplier. And finally, if you look at the traits that he gets from his loyalty meter, if his HP is lower than 50%, he gains a +10% bullseye chance. If his HP is lower than 25%, he gains +1 weapon damage. So he has a bunch of things that all come together that allow him to do massive damage the more health he has that has been taken off. Really great stuff. I love letting him kind of just stand out in the middle of the field, no cover, let enemies, touch him up. Not too much, of course. You can't just go crazy with it. But honestly, you should be taking out a ton of enemies every round. So he shouldn't be taking a crazy amount of damage where you feel like there's a risk of him flat out being killed. But all of this together makes him a great character. I love having him on my team. And then finally, we have reached the creme de la creme, the character I enjoyed using the most throughout my playthrough, Laughing Deer. Man, I love this guy. So this guy is all about melee damage, unlike the other characters we have looked at thus far, but he uses it to fantastic effect. So his power is Wild Run. Deer's headlong charge increases his base damage by 1 point for every 2 spaces he crosses, and it does not trigger a counter. As this power increases, he's going to be able to add different effects such as Dazed, and he's going to get the Duelist effect, which means he will perform a counter when he's attacked by a single target attack. Very great stuff. The thing that's crazy about this is it's going to allow him to oftentimes run all the way into the enemy's back line and attack a character, and then try to just wipe out masses of enemies who thought they were in an entrenched location. Now, the disadvantage of Wild Run is that oftentimes it's going to leave Laughing Deer in a position where he has no cover. And as soon as your turn ends, he's going to be vulnerable to attacks. So he's going to be taking damage all the time. And it becomes very important for you to give him a way to be able to regain his health. Now, of course, you can have medical consumable items that are going to help with that, but I actually like doing this with a trinket. So I found a trinket that gives him +2 HP per kill. And that way, he's missing out on luck, but he's in melee range, so luck really isn't needed. And every time he gets a kill, he's going to be getting some health back. I found that to be very, very effective in order to be able to keep him on his feet. And then if you look at the traits, he's got gathered pace. If at the start of the turn, deer has no cover, which 9 times out of 10, he should not, he's going to gain 5 speed. And obviously, more speed is going to help him be able to reach enemies not only when he's doing regular attacks, but also Wild Run is going to take your speed into account as well. So it's going to extend the distance you can go in order to get to those hard to reach enemies. Warrior is going to give them a +1 damage when using melee weapons. Natural Predator means that every time he kills someone, he's going to get a +1% bullseye chance until the end of the mission. This stacks like crazy for Laughing Deer. I trigger bullseye and do double damage with his melee weapons all the time. He's resistant to being dazed and drunk and to bleeding as well. So it's all going to help with his tankiness. Slayer is going to give them a +5% bullseye chance when attacking with melee weapons, which obviously is going to use to great effect. And then he also, if you get that 5 of a kind status with him, he'll have the Witness Me status, which means when he kills someone while not being in any cover, he will gain a +1 bullseye damage multiplier, which you'll be able to trigger all the time. This guy is just absolutely fantastic. He mows through enemies once you have them set up properly. I really enjoyed using them. And that is my breakdown for all the companions. Hopefully I provided some useful information. If there are any questions or things you were still unsure about, please by all means leave me a comment down below. I'd be happy to respond. Otherwise, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.